Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome you all to the Scientia session of Modeling Conversational Interfaces. So, let me begin with asking you a question. Okay. So, I'm pretty sure that you all have interacted with a chatbot in your lifetime. Anyone here who has built a chatbot? Anyone? Okay, so no. But by the end of this session, I can guarantee that you all will be able to build a domain-specific chatbot, and you will understand that how easy it is to build a domain-specific chatbot. So today, me and Mare are going to share the experience that we gained by building KT chatbot and different few other chatbots. So, it has predicted that during the years of 2016 to 2023, that the chatbot market is exponentially grow, and that in the Gartner report it's mentioned that 85% of the customer interactions will be managed without human by 2020, and like 2020 is 4 months from now. And can you believe that this is going to be real? It is. But anyway, this 85% does not mean that the total 85% is going to take over by chatbots. There are other like online shopping applications will also be included in this 85%. So this means that there is a huge demand for you if you know how to develop a chatbot. Let me tell you the definition of the chatbot. So, we can call a chatbot as a virtual assistant which is programmed to simulate interactive human conversations through voice or text commands. In other words, we can say it's an AI program which simulates interactive human conversations using pre-calculated user phrases in auditory or text-based signals. Going forward, like when we are developing the chatbot, we will be using the word agent or assistant for the chatbot. So to build a chatbot, before building a chatbot, we thought of explaining you how a chatbot works. So in order to a chatbot to start, a user needs to invoke the chatbot. That is a must. The user's invocation means that either a user should speak to the bot or else text to the bot. So that is what we call user invocation. And then once the user invokes the chatbot, the bot transforms user request into actionable data. This transformation only occurs if the user's input is matched with one of the intents in the agent, which means that in the bot there is a unit called an intent. That intent will transform the user's input into some actionable data. This actionable data will be used to generate an output to the user. And if this intent, we'll be discussing what an intent in the upcoming slides, but for the moment, keep in mind that for a chatbot to provide you a proper response, user's input should be matched with an intent. And if your intent is connected to a webhook or an external API, then it can give back the response to the chatbot, and chatbot will provide it back to the user. So that's basically how a chatbot conversational flow will work. And then let's have a look at bot platform ecosystem. So here you can see like the day-to-day chatbot applications that you are using, like Siri, Google Assistant. So those things we call AI agents. And then we have different messaging platforms such as Facebook Messenger, Viber, WhatsApp. So those things, like there are like more than thousands of chatbots deployed in this messaging platform. And then we have services like which provide AI as a service platform. And then we have the bot framework. For today, we selected to use a bot framework in order to build a chatbot. So that is kind of the easiest way to build a chatbot. And out of the different chatbot platforms, we selected Dialogflow. There are a few reasons for selecting Dialogflow in order to develop a chatbot. The first main reason is that if you can build a chatbot using Dialogflow, we can guarantee that you can build a chatbot using any other platform. Amazon Lex and then Alexa skill. That's going to be a simple task for you if you know Dialogflow, because it covers all the concepts of building a chatbot. And then again, there are other like as in the like you can see, it's a end-to-end build once, deploy everywhere. So once you develop a chatbot using Dialogflow, you can deploy it to like different channels, like different messaging platforms like Viber, Skype, as we displayed in the previous slide. And then again, the other reason is it supports different languages, because currently lot of chatbot platforms does not provide like multi-language support. Even this does not only support different languages, it supports different locals as well. Okay, so we selected an example to build a chatbot today. Imagine you want to go and imagine you want to order a food through a chatbot. So in that case, you want to tell the food item, then like the type of think you want to order a burger. Then you want to say which type of a burger you need, and then the burger size, large, regular, small one, and then the quantity. And maybe then think you can even want to order a beverage after that. So with that, we will be building a bot today. Marek?
Okay, thank you, Ershadi. Now we have this pretty good example, and let's see how you would order this in a normal typical life. Consider example where you go to Pizza Hut or even Classic, and you go to the cashier and you ask, I want a pizza. And as soon as you say, I want a pizza, like the cashier questions you back, right? What kind of pizza you want? How much? So all these questions comes back. So let's map this whole idea into the agent world. So you going to Pizza Hut or any other restaurant is your intention. So that's what you want to do in this case. Similarly in chatbot, this placing order is your intention. In Dialogflow and as well as in other languages, we call them as intents, which are a particular goal that user want to achieve. And then you step into the store and you ask, I want a burger. That's the user speaking. So that we call as user utterances. Whatever you spoken or type phrases in order to invoke your intention. Then what happens? The cashier asks you back questions. That means prompts. By using prompts, we can gather more input data by asking questions. Whenever we ask this question as well as by giving answers, what we do is we mention few set of parameters in order to cashier to place the order. So in this example, I want to order 2 burgers, and the cashier asks back what type, and then you said chicken. So all these burger, 2, chicken, they are the parameters that you would be captured. Once you have all these parameters captured, cashier would place the order. Similarly, in our case, we can fulfill the order. That can be either using the bot framework itself, or even we can use some third-party APIs and others. So let's convert this idea into simple form. As Ershadi mentioned, always users start speaking to the bot. So it can be either like a voice input or even a typed text, and in some occurrences that can be even some kind of event. Like sometimes you might have seen whenever you open up a web page, like the chatbot pops up. So that can be event as well. And once you have that event, you send that input to a chatbot framework. In our case, we send it to Dialogflow. And in the chatbot framework, what happens is it initially identifies your intention, because you can come to order, you can come to shop even in order to place an order, or there might be occurrences you want to check your order status as well. So there are then two intents, and based on your utterance, the framework has to do this intent matching. And once it's done with intent matching, it would do the parameter extraction in order to capture all the parameters from your address. And then either by using external APIs, databases, or even the framework itself, you could define responses in order to send back to the user. And that responses can be some voice response or even text response and some actionable data as well. Because sometimes like you get quick replies or cursors that you can scroll through and select on. So likewise, that's a normal life of the conversation that would normally occur. So as you see, in a bot framework, this intent matching and parameter extraction does a very important part. So let's have a look at on these intents and parameter extraction and how they are happen. So as I mentioned, the initial intention that you wanted to do, that's we call as intents. So intent categorizes and end user's intention in one conversation time, and then it does the intent matching, which we known as intent classification. And going forward with intents, we have a few set of things that we need to clarify. Mainly things like training phrases, which we provide the bot to understand what this intent is, and then things like parameters and responses and fulfillment. So let's go to the Dialogflow console and see how this is organized and how you can create a simple intent. So this is the Dialogflow console, as you can see. In the right side, you have all the menu bars where you have intent creation, entities, and even for the options that which we'll be telling you later. And in this case, we'll be creating English chatbot, and here you can create intents. But before going to create an intent, I'll show you how you can also test something using Dialogflow console itself. Similarly, like you go to the restaurant and you say hi, and then it would ask what kind of thing you want to order, and then you would be response back with I want pizza. So then it prompts you back what do you like, chicken, seafood, or vegetarian. So this is the normal process that now we are going to implement. So let's create an intent called place order and see how we can integrate those. Okay. Once you create an order, you have to give a name to an intent, and then initially we will start with the training phrases. So these training phrases are what you provide to bot framework in order to clarify the user's intention, because we can't make sure that you will be knowing all the things that a user would come and say. So in that cases, in the bot framework, what happens is we provide a set of training phrases in order to identify that intention, and then the bot framework will do the machine learning part and do this classification, so that it will be easier for us to implement it in a real short time. So in this example, we have provided several training phrases, or else we call that utterances, like I would like to get a vegetable burger, I want chicken noodles. So things like that. And you can see there are some parameters highlighted, things like vegetable, burger, or even a country like to. So what happens here? If I check in one example, whenever I mention I would like to get a vegetable burger, there I also have mentioned capture this vegetable as a parameter called food type. in order to do this, I want to know what are the type are. So this is very business specific. Only the business case would be defined what are the parameters that you would be having, what type of data that they will be capturing. So in that case, since this is food type, we will have to create all these data types, similar to other languages as well. For that, in Dialogflow, we use entities. So entities are extracted from users' input and represent different parameters that are meaningful for your business application. So it's quite customized, but with the whole entity terminology, there are three different types we can mainly consider. One called system, the other called developer, and the other one is session entities. But by combining there, we can make composite entities as well. So let's see how we can initially create a data type in order to capture these parameters. And before that, I'll show you quite some different type of data types that we will be using in this example. So as I mentioned, system entities are pre-built entities that you can use. There's things like email, date, or even an email URL, or color or unit currency. So things like that are already, those data types are already created by Dialogflow. So there are about 40 plus different types in Dialogflow, which we can use as system entities. And even in system entities, like we normally have in other languages as well, we have system enum entities where we only have different reference values. So consider sample where we need to capture colors. So we only have very distinct values, maybe black, blue, red, and all. And we also have system mapping values where it refers to something. Because if you say today, then it refers to a date. So in such cases, we could use system mappings. And also we can use system composite entities whenever we combine these 2 or 3 other entities which are already created by Dialogflow. So in this example, if you can capture something like $10, then 10 is a number which is system number, and dollars is a system currency type which you want to capture. Whenever we combine both these number and currency code, we get system unit currency type. And then we have developer entities for anything that's not covered under system entities. So in our sample, we have food type and meal preferences and all, which we need to create because only the business logic creation will be knowing what are the things that we need. So initially, we will be going ahead with developer mappings where we create the data type and we mention these are the values that it would capture. So for our example, let's go to Dialogflow console and create an entity. So this is the entity tab of Dialogflow, and you can either create an entity or even upload JSON as entity here. And let's see the food type entity. So here normally whenever we, it's quite easy. In this example, we will be defining different synonyms because the food types that you have are chicken, seafood, and vegetable, but user might be even come and say, I just want a veg. So in that case, like not only the vegetable, even the value veg, you need to refer as vegetable. So in that case, in Dialogflow, if you want, like you can have entities without synonyms. So in that case, you will be mentioning only chicken, seafood, and vegetable. But if you want to mention different synonyms for each of these values, then you can do that as well. Because instead of having like veg and vegetable as 2 types, you can, since you can capture them as one value, one reference value, then it's quite easier when you are developing the business logic. So once we have created all these food types and even main meal size and portion sizes, likewise here, let's go back to the intent that we created, the placeholder intent, and see how we can define all the parameters that we need to calculate. So in Dialogflow intent creation, you have set up different set for action and parameters, and here you define all the parameters that you need to capture. In this example, I want to capture main meal, food type, quantity, and portion. And see, the entity that I have created, I always start with at mark, at symbol. At main, when I mention at main meal, what it does is it refers to that developer entity that I have created. And for things like quantity, I can use the system entity, which always starts with at sysdot. So that's quite easy. So you can refer to the intent that you have created. And once you do that, what you should do is from user's utterance, you need to capture these values. Likewise in this one, where you have I want chicken noodles, you want to capture this chicken value and resolve this as parameter food type, where you created the data type, the entity as food type. For that, what we do is, whenever we define parameters, we mention a variable name with $mark. So whenever you mention a value with $mark, what it does is it captures the same value from user's utterance, where whenever you mention an utterance, most of the time, like since you initially create the intents and then only add in the utterances, Dialogflow itself will be capturing these parameters and even do the parameter resolution. But if it doesn't, like you can select the word, then mention what is this entity is. Likewise, you can create all the parameters. And in my example, in order to order pizza, you need to capture few parameters and you need to capture them all. Because without knowing meal type, I can't place an order. So in that case, I mentioned them all as required. So that's another quite easy feature that we could use. Because you don't have to have a lot of if-elses and all in order to check whether all these parameters are captured and all. You can just use the required option here and then capture those. But normally, what happens? Like I go to a shop and at one run I don't say I want 2 vegetable large pizzas, right? So normally what you would say, I want pizza or I want vegetable pizza. So what does that mean is we will be only capturing few parameters in the first conversation. Then in order to ask the questions, which we also called as prompts, we need to define what are the questions that you need to be asked. So for that, in Dialogflow, we have this prompt section where you can define prompts if that parameter is not captured. So in this example, if my portion size is not captured, then I could mention different set of prompt questions in order to ask back from user to get that parameter resolved. So in this case, I want to capture my portion size, so I would be asking what is the portion size you want. Or else, since I know all the portion sizes that I have, I could say we have large, regular and small portions. What type of portion you want? So that might be a quite good experience for user than asking just the portion size. Using that way, you could also mention the user the types that you only have. One more thing that we haven't used in this case, but consider sample where you want to capture multiple types of value. Let's say even for food type. So if you want both vegetable and chicken, then in that case, similar to arrays that we use, like whenever we want array, we have square brackets. Likewise, if we mention this as a list, then it would capture multiple parameters from a single address. So once we have that utterances created and then you mention the parameters, you are good to go ahead with fulfillment. Because in this example, we'll be providing a static response, something like in this example, we'll be asking, okay, I got the order and I'm asking whether you want any drink. That you can define in the responses tab, where you have like you can even provide multiple responses and Dialogflow will automatically select one and response back to user. And if you use things with dollar parameter, then like you can even mention, okay, we will make you whatever the food type that you mentioned and like want anything to drink. So in that way, like the user experience is much better because you can also give a confirmation to user that you got the all parameters right. So if I test this again, hi, I want rice. So in that case, what happens is I only mention one parameter. You can even see here only the main meal rice is captured. And I want to capture three other parameters: food type, portion and quantity. And the order we have created the parameters, based on that order, Dialogflow will be prompt me back with different questions. In this case, since I have mentioned the main meal but not the food type, it's asking me the type I want by asking question. If I provide I want something like chicken, in that case it would capture that I got chicken rice and then like what kind of how much portions that you need. So likewise we could go ahead with by implementing the simple intent. I hope you got this idea cleared how you can create an intent and then provide a simple set of utterances and then provide a response in order to response back. Similarly, you can create multiple intents for your application, so you don't have to worry about too much things. Only you need to figure out is the business case, and you need to break down different set of utterances that user would be saying for different intentions, and then you need to figure out the parameters from that intention and then parameters from them utterances and then create the intents in Dialogflow. So it's quite easy, I guess. So if you have any questions or anything not clarified at this moment, maybe like before we go to other concept, like you could ask. If not, like I'll proceed. So we have used system entity as well as developer mapping entity. There are few other entities that we haven't used, but it's quite good for you to know at this point, because then whenever you want to capture something like that, you would be referring to this. In Dialogflow, we can also create developer enum entities. This is much more like two complex objects that we will be creating in other languages, because in an object you will be capturing set of parameters. So if you create a developer enum entity, then in a developer enum, inside a developer enum entity, what you mention is set of other developer mapping entities and system entities. So if you want to capture, in our example, if you want to capture all this food order as a one example, then you can create a food order developer enum object, and in that object we can have all these parameters. Or else, for things like consider example where you want to capture price range. This happens even in our KD project, where we want to capture a price range for different products. So if you want to have something like between $10 to $15, here what happens is you have $10 and $15 which are system unit currencies. For things like between, larger than, less than, I will be creating a developer entity. And then since we have this link invert too, there's no point of only creating just intent for just two. So what we could do with Dialogflow composite entities, we can mention if you have the price range value and then one value of system currency and two and another one, then capture this as a price range. So something like that we could do a developer composite entities. And if you want to like in this example as a order, as shop owner or the business party, I know all the parameters that user would mention. Yes, whenever I create intent, I mentioned the entities that I'll be providing. But in real life, that's not the case. Because sometimes we need to capture things are only specific to that particular user. So if you have used things like Google Assistant, you open up the phone and say, call someone's name, call Ershadi. Then what happens is like the name, you can't mention it at the runtime, the build time. So it has to capture at the runtime based on that particular user. So in such cases, we can use session entries which are only defined for that particular user and for only that utterance. So if you have different user count mapped to that user, and then you can even integrate that service with the chatbot framework and capture these different parameters that you want to get from user. So that's quite the basic idea about intent and entities. And let's have a look at about context and fulfillment. Ershadi will be covered.
Okay. So, what is this context? In real world, you need to know the context of a conversation if someone asks you a question. Like, if someone comes to you and say, I need a burger or I need a help, something like that, for you to give a proper response for the person who is asking that question, you need to know the context of the conversation. So, it's simply the same with Dialogflow as well. Dialogflow needs to know the context of the conversation in order to generate a proper response. In Dialogflow, using context, you can build the conversational flow. So this context is like a validator for the conversational flow. Here, in an intent, you can see that there are two types of context that an intent can have. The one is the input context, and the other is the output context. So, what does this input context mean? Imagine you have two intents with the same set of utterances. Then, this input context acts as the validator for the particular input to match with an intent. So basically, an intent will be selected by Dialogflow if the context is matched and the utterances are matched. So that is what an input context is. And the output context is what the context which will get activated after a particular intent is matched. So from here, if we go to Dialogflow console and have a look at our welcome intent. So this welcome intent is the intent which accepts a greeting from a user. You can see there are two output contexts, display menu and place order. You saw that previously once a user greets to the bot and the bot asks about what's the order. Now I'm going to remove this and show you what will happen. Okay, now I asked the bot that I want a burger, but bot couldn't understand that. The reason as to why it is I removed the context of the place order, and then the place order intent is protected with an input context. Although the utterance matched, the context didn't match in that case. That's why the bot couldn't provide a proper response for the user. And then I'll go back to the welcome intent, and then at the place order output context. Okay, now you have seen I changed this the value which added defaultly to the 2. The reason is this value we call it as the lifespan value. So this Dialogflow's default lifespan expires within 20 minutes. And this number will also, again, as it is like a main component of this validator, meaning that once you activated this intent, it can go up to another 2 steps. That's why I have to. So with my example, like the user is going to greet the bot, that is 1. So hi. So and then after that place order intent. So I'm going to keep that context 2 times, which means the place order intent. That is this. That is we can consider after this. That is the first attempt. And then after the place order intent, then the bot prompts for a beverage. So that is the second one. So after that, I don't want to keep this context. That's why I added the value 2 to the place order. So if you check from the console, so here there is a now I added the place order value. Let me greet to the bot and continue the conversation. Okay, now the bot is asking like it. Chicken, maybe 2, but it's the portion size small. And want anything to drink? I'm going to say no. Yeah, now if you go to diagnostic info section, you can see the active context. So now from this particular the ordering no intent, you can see only display menu context has been activated. So that is how the context comes into place. And in Dialogflow, we have this analytics tab where we can see the session flow. So session flow is basically the same as how the context path has been set. Yeah, so here you can see like this, from this, using this diagram, like you have used like mind maps when you are building applications. So this can be used as the same, because this helps you to find where you have bugs or issues and validate the path of your bot. Okay, so I explained you about input-output context and the lifespan and the session flow. So let me tell you what follow-up intents are. So in Dialogflow, there is a terminology to automatically maintain the context of 2 intents. That is where the follow-up intents comes into place. So this place order intent is, we can call it as the parent intent, while ordering yes and ordering no, which accepts the inputs of like the positive responses for the ordering, like asking for a beverage goes to ordering yes, and the negative responses go to ordering no. So these 2 intents we can call as the child intents of the place order intent. And these child intents are known as follow-up intents. The reason is, once we add a follow-up intent to place order, like, so now if you go inside the place order intent, you can see there is a output context of place order follow-up. There is only one output context, and here there are 2 intents having the place order follow-up as the input context. Even the ordering no intent has the same input context. So meaning that once user confirms with a once user confirms with a food item, then there are 2 paths to go, either picking a beverage or not picking a beverage. And then there is an option to add follow-up intents from Dialogflow that there are like pre-built follow-up intents. This pre-built, the advantage of using these pre-built intents, follow-up intents are, it will add also a whole lot of utterances while you create the intent. So if you go inside, like you might have seen the previous intent, like the one which we created, it didn't had much input utterances. But here, this has a whole lot of training phrases. They were automatically added from Dialogflow. We didn't add any of this. So that is an advantage of using the pre-built intents. And anyway, to have this output and input context, you don't need, it is not mandatory to have a follow-up intent. You can even, like if you see, from welcome intent to placeholder intent, there is no parent-child relationship in these intents. But we have set the context and sent the conversational flow. But from placeholder to the ordering drink, we have set them as we have made a parent and child relationship, and then limited the access of intent, the order of beverage intent being triggered from Dialogflow. So that everything depends on your business logic. So that is all about context. If you have any questions about the context, I think it's better to ask now rather than moving to fulfillment, because I know like context is bit like difficult to understand, and it is the basic main something you should definitely know while you're developing a bot, because it's like the validator. Any questions? Okay, so I'll assume no, which is good for me. Yeah. So let's move to fulfillment. So if your bot needs to, now you have seen, we created a bot using the Dialogflow admin console. You saw that there's no anywhere to write a single code, right? We didn't write anything. We just typed some utterances, ticked some buttons. That's it, right? So what if you need to add some business logic? What if you want to perform some calculation? That's where we need the fulfillment. So this each and every intent of your agent can be connected to a fulfillment. In what's this? So if you can say, so in our use case, like we have we took the example of like saving the food item and the beverage once user confirms the order. So that is basically after either user selects a drink. Now in intent, there is a section where you can enable the fulfillment. So like we have marked this enable webhook call for this intent. And there are two types of fulfillment in Dialogflow. One is either by webhook or else by like a cloud, using cloud function. But don't be misled with the word enable webhook, because this means that you are enabling the fulfillment as well. So moving on to fulfillment tab. So these are the two types of fulfillments you can have, webhook and the inline editor. So this webhook is basically a post call, which the webhook, from the webhook, whatever your application or the API will receive a post call. And then the other one, the inline editor, which we have taken as for the example. So that is a cloud function. You can either call it inline, or else, even like we know when it comes to a project, we can't call it just here inline. So then for that we have a solution where we can download the same code and deploy it to cloud functions and deploy it to Firebase and use it. So basically this is a cloud function written in Node, and then we have a Node module called Dialogflow fulfillment, which we can use. And here, if we go down, you can see there is an intent map where I have mapped an intent with the function name. So this save order function is the function name, and this is the intent name. Ordering no, and here with ordering no and yes, I have mapped the same function, because whatever happens, I want to save. I want to save the customer's order. Now you can see it's very base, something very simple. And I will be also like this. We use agent.add to provide a response to the user. So once you place the order, the bot will, if it's saved in the database, the bot will provide the response. Your order has been placed. We will deliver within next 10 minutes. So that's the response will be is generated from the third party. Okay, so that's basically about fulfillment. And the context. Then the other, Then we have the section of training. Yes.
Okay, now you might have seen it's quite easy. We are just using a console and like chatbot, and it does identify what are the things that you say. So whenever normally people say there's a chatbot, so you're going to have to do the natural language processing and you need to do machine learning models and all, right? So where does that happen? In Dialogflow, since they have if you have seen the Google GCP APIs, they have different set of APIs for natural language processing, sentimental analysis, and even for creating machine learning models. So Dialogflow is a kind of product based on those APIs. So it does the natural language processing and understanding, and then even the machine learning model creation, Dialogflow take care of itself. What we need to do as a developer are to provide the necessary training process and undergo through the training process and write our business logic and the fulfillment part. So since we have covered how we can create intent and how we can make the flow using context and then do the fulfillment even by using third-party APIs or by using databases and all, using fulfillment, now we'll see how we can optimize the training process. In Dialogflow, whenever we communicate with the chatbot, it does create a conversation list where we also call as history. And there's another way that even if we have a conversation, set of conversations already from maybe from previous call history data or things like that, we can even import data in our Dialogflow, through Dialogflow training conversation list. We'll go there and see how this list is. So this is basically the training tab of Dialogflow, and you can see here we have done few samples by answering hi, I want rice, chicken. So all these questions, the things that I have asked. So based on that, all of these conversations, it's creating one conversation turn with for last conversation turn there were 13 requests came in, and for all requests it was able to match an intent. But consider sample where this chicken is not actual. In that case, what we could do is by clicking this intent section, we can correct what intent is need to be matched. Yes, if you have consider you have about 10 intents, and we have quite similar utterances within those intents. The best way to manage that is using context, but even after managing context, if you have some intents, some utterances that are matching for different wrong intents, then you could go to the training tab and fix those manually. So that's the manual training process that will be underway. So once you fix that, you can approve the process and the model will be recreated by Dialogflow. And there's option, as I mentioned, you can even do the bulk upload here. Only the text files, because the conversation, what it needs to be done is it needs to be created in conversation tab. So if you can provide a CSV with all the conversations that would come to bot, Then once you uploaded that, it would identify this intent, this query would be matched for this intent, this query would be matched for this intent, likewise. And if there's anything wrong, then you can correct that using the training type. Then, since Dialogflow does this whole natural language processing as well as machine learning creation, there are few options we could configure in order to improve the process. For that, in Dialogflow machine learning configuration section, we have the basically the intent classification, as I mentioned earlier. It's done basically by using a rule-based grammar or by using a machine learning model. What happens is whenever we give trading utterances, by checking the different intent types that it could have, it creates from every utterance, it creates a template. If you have something like a query comes with food type and quantity, then this query should match to place order intent. Likewise, it's creating a rule-based grammar. And the more we use, it's also creating machine learning models. So whenever we have a lot of queries coming, then also it get more trained. So we go to the console and see how we can configure this. In Dialogflow, here you have J icon where you can go to the settings tab, and in the settings tab we have things like time zones and projects and all, and you have settings for ML settings. Under ML settings, you can define the matching what you want. If your chatbot is having let's say about 100 intents, then it's quite hard to create an rule-based grammar. In that case, the ideal option would be going ahead with ML only mode. But for a simple chatbot where you have only a few set of intents, and especially if you are using a lot of developer entities as well as composite entities, then it's better to go ahead with the hybrid mode. There it has the rule-based grammar and then machine learning layer as well. So for this example, we have used the hybrid sample, and it's kind of most recommended way. But if you have a mentioned sample like this, then it's better to go ahead with ML only mode. And I'll show you another thing that we could use the configuration as well. I'll say hi and then I want pizza. Here we can see the response that we got, and I'll go to the last part of the diagnostics JSON info. Here it mentioned my intent is match to place order, and the intent detection confidence is 0.6. What does that mean is, whenever you create a chatbot, you can only give few set of utterances, and based on that, the Dialogflow is the one who's creating the model, and even the clusters to these different intents. And whenever you give a query, what it does is it matches with the model if this query is matching with any of these intents. And in this example, my query I want pizza has matched with the 0.6 confidence. So if we have configured some value here as a classification threshold, here I have mentioned only 0.3. My value, the confidence value, I got 0.6, which is larger than 0.3, since my my query would be matched with the intent order. But if we have some value like 0.7 where you want certain quite accuracy, so this happens when we have things like if you have a query in a particular way which you exactly need to match for that type, then you can mention our classification threshold should be 0.6, in that 0.7. In that case, my query won't be matched with place order intent because it only had 0.6 confidence. So that's the other way we can use the ML settings in order to improve our code. Even for for this also, 0.3 is the quite recommended value for normal chatbot. If you need very query specific things, then only we need to focus on this value. Then there are few other things. What happens if this value fails? Is if it can't match with any of intents, then what does it do? That's where we have fallback intents. Even in our case, we had the default fallback intent here. If my query is not matching with any of intents with 0.3 confidence, then it would match with, it would fall back to the fallback intent, where I can mention different set of fallback responses like sorry, could you say that again? What was that? Things like that. So that's the basic kind of overview that we can use Dialogflow. And with Dialogflow now, as Ershadi mentioned, it's build once, deploy everywhere platform. So once you have created an bot using Dialogflow, it's quite easy to integrate with either your own front-end service. Like that's how even with here we have integrated our bot because we have the CPP project with the Chatbot platform, and then there were separate front ends and even the cube was there. So in our case, it was a custom integration. But if you want to integrate with normal services like Facebook Messenger, Slack, Skype, or Spark, then it's quite easy because you only need to mention different set of configurations in, like, if you want to integrate with Viber, then you need to go to Viber account, developer account, and create an app key and bot name and only mention the target. So it's quite easy to integrate with most of the services, and that's why, like, the main reason that even we have used Dialogflow as well. This, even if you want to convert this whole bot into Alexa, and you want to provide the service using Alexa, then you only need to export it as Amazon Alexa JSON file, and then like you can do the processing quite easy. And there were some new features that came in with the Dialogflow, like things like knowledge base, where you could use it as a frequently asked questions bot. So what happens is, like, you only provide few set of questions and answers, and it figured out you can, if you go to the website, like most of the websites have FAQ section, especially things like shopping carts and all. So if you mention the questions and answers for that, then it create a bot itself for that FAQs, and then we can use those documents to provide with our bot as well. And like Ershadi initially asked, who of you have used chatbots? I'm pretty sure like most of you have used chatbots for fun stuff. Because whenever you have Apple and Siri and assistant, like, you don't order food or you don't do any productive work. Instead, what you do is, like, you'd be asking some bunch of questions like how are you, or like what's your name. That's the normal user behavior. Like, that's how we quite used to do even in real life. So for things like that, even with like Dialogflow, let's say so for things like that, I ask how are you, it says wonderful, thanks for asking, for blah blah. We have small talks even integrated with Dialogflow for this, like small stuff like about asking about user. So for this, like, we could define set of responses. That's why, like, even if you go to like even with Siri or assistant, like, there are a few set of answers, but like that's all you get. Like, it's not based on any business logic. That's a random answer that you would be getting most time. So for that, like, you can use small talk and things like that. So that's the quite basic idea about Dialogflow as well as the conversational models. And I hope all of you got quite good understanding on how you can decide the utterances, and then how to capture the parameters based on utterance and create that as intent, and then use context to maintain the session flow, and then by using fulfillment, how you can integrate with the third-party business applications or even databases where we did, and then response back to users. So that's the normal turn that you would be getting. So I think, like, since you got that idea totally correct, the whole idea, like, by tomorrow you won't be remembering most of the things if you don't use it. So here, like if you have used Quick Labs ever, the platform is basically it's a Google platform where you can you get different set of sandboxes in order to try different GCP services, and I would recommend you to try this implementing an AI chatbot with Dialogflow, because it has the like basic overview, and then even how you can create intents, and like you will be getting a free environment there in order to create a bot. So give it a try there. This if you can save this link somewhere, maybe with phone or something. This would give free credit for 1 month. So in that case, like you can not only use GCP like Dialogflow, you can use like any Google environments, like even for Kubernetes or continuous integration or for any service. So give it a try there. Then only like you will be understanding how it's easy to create a chatbot and how you can integrate it with other services. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for coming today, and if you have any questions, you can ask. Anything about like what we did, or any general questions that you want to clarify about